Breaking today. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle accused of leaking highly sensitive information about a private meeting with Buckingham Palace and representatives for King Charles. Unbelievably, to the Mail on Sunday's editor-at-large Charlotte Griffiths, the same woman who Prince Harry
arrived in Britain expecting one humiliating defeat to dominate the week. Instead, a second controversy quickly threatened to become even more damaging. A journalist connected to the newspaper group Harry had just challenged in court alleged that someone close to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex had previously supplied her with information about private efforts to reopen communication with Buckingham Palace. According to the allegation, the resulting story presented Harry and Meghan in a favorable light. But when photographs of the meeting appeared, suspicion was allowed to fall on the palace. The claim has not been independently established here, yet if it is accurate, it would strike at the one issue standing between Harry and any meaningful royal reconciliation. Here we look beyond the surface of royal drama and examine the choices, relationships, and consequences shaping the future of the crown. In this case, the central question is simple but devastating. Can private contact with Prince Harry remain private long enough for genuine reconciliation to begin? The allegation was presented by Charlotte Griffiths, the Mail on Sunday's editor-at-large. Her connection to the story made the claim immediately explosive because Harry had just lost a major legal battle involving the same newspaper group. Griffiths said that during 2025, a person close to Harry and Meghan contacted her, arranged a lunch, and shared information that helped produce stories presenting the couple more positively. One of those stories reportedly involved quiet efforts to rebuild relations between the Sussex household and King Charles. That detail matters because Harry has repeatedly argued that negative reporting about him is often shaped by hostile palace briefings, insiders, or improper conduct. If someone in his own circle was also supplying selected information to journalists, the moral line he has drawn between himself and the media would become much harder to defend. Public figures regularly speak to reporters through advisors, but the problem begins when favorable briefing is treated as legitimate, while unfavorable briefing is condemned as betrayal. At the center of the claim was a discreet meeting at the Royal Overseas League near Clarence House. Reports suggested that one of the King's senior communications figures met representatives connected to Harry and Meghan. The gathering appeared to offer something the family had lacked for years: a cautious channel through which misunderstandings might be reduced without forcing Charles and Harry into an immediate emotional confrontation. There was no public ceremony and no official declaration. It was the kind of contact that could only succeed if everyone involved accepted that trust had to be rebuilt slowly. Those attending were later photographed on a balcony visible from the public space below. The images quickly became evidence that Palace and Sussex representatives were communicating. At first, many observers assumed the disclosure was unlikely to have come from Harry's side. After all, he was involved in a bitter legal fight with associated newspapers. Why would anyone close to him provide information to a journalist working within that group? Griffiths later claimed that this unlikely scenario was precisely what happened. Her account went further. She alleged that after the photographs appeared, sources close to the Sussexes expressed frustration to another outlet, creating the impression that the palace had exposed the meeting. That is the part carrying the greatest potential consequence. Briefing a favorable story is common in public life. Participating in a disclosure and then allowing another party to appear responsible would be something more serious. If true, it would turn reconciliation into leverage and leave royal officials blamed for a publicity strategy they did not control. Harry and Meghan's representatives may reject that interpretation, challenge the source, or offer a different explanation. The balcony was visible. Photographers could have noticed the gathering independently, and journalists have their own relationships and motives. Responsible viewers should therefore resist treating one account as a final verdict. But allegations can still affect behavior when they align with fears already held inside an institution. Buckingham Palace does not need a courtroom ruling before becoming more cautious. It only needs to believe the risk of disclosure remains high. The palace's concern is not simply that Harry speaks to journalists. The monarchy has always lived in a complicated relationship with the press. The real issue is predictability. Before confidential communication can resume, Charles and his advisors must know what happens after a call ends, after a meeting breaks up, or after an offer is made. Will the details remain private? Will only one part of the discussion be briefed? Will silence be described as rejection? Will a personal gesture become pressure through headlines? Every uncertainty makes direct contact more difficult. Reconciliation between a father and son cannot develop through public tests. A private invitation cannot become proof of surrender. A declined request cannot instantly become evidence of cruelty. A meeting cannot be selectively described and then used to measure which side appeared more generous. Genuine repair requires both men to speak without an audience and to tolerate long periods when nothing is announced. That requirement is especially difficult in the Sussex story because so many private family experiences have already become public material through interviews, documentaries, court proceedings, and Harry's memoir. His supporters argue that he had reasons to speak. They point to hostile coverage, competing royal households, and years in which Harry believed other people were shaping his story, while he was expected to remain silent. They also note that his anger toward the British press is rooted in genuine trauma connected to the death of his mother. The allegation became more damaging because it emerged beside Harry's court defeat. The case was not simply another lawsuit. It formed part of a wider mission to prove that newspapers had crossed legal and ethical boundaries when reporting on powerful individuals. Losing therefore challenged more than Harry's legal position. It challenged the explanation he has often offered for how information about him enters the public domain. A court loss does not prove that all of Harry's concerns about media conduct are wrong. Unlawful information gathering has happened. Victims deserve justice, and newspapers must remain accountable. But when a court does not validate a particular claim, and a journalist then says Sussex-linked contacts voluntarily supplied positive material, critics gain a powerful alternative explanation. Not every story comes from hacking or unlawful intrusion. Some come from advisors, social circles, acquaintances, and people attempting to shape a public narrative. Harry responded to the judgment with language suggesting that he viewed the result as profoundly unjust. Commentators focused on his description of the outcome as a whitewash, arguing that such wording placed him in direct conflict with the authority of the British legal system. The sensitivity increased because courts operate within the constitutional framework of the Crown. Had Harry been staying at Buckingham Palace while issuing a forceful attack on the decision, Charles could have faced an extraordinary contradiction. The king's son using a royal residence as the setting for criticism of a judgment delivered in the sovereign's name. That concern helps explain the confusion surrounding reports that Harry might stay at Buckingham Palace during the visit. One version suggested that accommodation had been discussed. Another suggested that deadlines were missed, arrangements changed, or the offer was not accepted within the required period. Then, a message from Harry's side appeared to confirm that he would stay at the palace, only for palace officials to indicate that this was not the case. The sequence made both sides appear to be speaking past each other. From Harry's perspective, it may have looked like another example of palace ambiguity, a private gesture apparently offered and then restricted when public pressure increased. From the palace perspective, the public announcement may have looked like an attempt to force a decision through publicity. Once the public is told that Harry has accepted an invitation, the king's household faces an uncomfortable choice. It can correct the claim and appear rejecting, or allow the arrangement to proceed under circumstances it did not approve. For King Charles, this is not merely a communications problem. It is a personal tragedy complicated by constitutional duty. As a father, he may want contact with Harry, news of Archie and Lilibet, and some reduction in the bitterness surrounding the family. As sovereign, he has to protect the privacy of the monarchy, the authority of its institutions, and the people who work around him. A conversation with Harry is therefore never only a conversation. It becomes a security decision, a staffing decision, a media risk, and a question about the next reign. Prince William approaches the problem from a different position. Charles can still think as a father searching for a path back. William must think as the next sovereign responsible for the institution Harry has repeatedly criticized. The Prince of Wales has seen private arguments become global content. He has seen family messages discussed publicly and moments of grief or anger used to support competing narratives. From William's point of view, caution does not have to mean revenge. It can mean risk management. His concern extends beyond his own reputation. Catherine has faced intense scrutiny, serious health challenges, and years of speculation about her relationship with the Sussexes. George, Charlotte, and Louis are growing older in a world where family tension is searchable, replayed, and monetized. William must consider whether renewed proximity to Harry could create another cycle in which private words later appear in interviews, books, documentaries, or carefully sourced reports. Harry's defenders may say that the palace applies a double standard. They may argue that royal officials brief the media, that William's household benefits from favorable coverage, and that Harry is condemned whenever he attempts to defend himself. Those concerns deserve examination. Trust cannot be rebuilt if Buckingham Palace demands silence from Harry while allowing anonymous attacks against him. Discretion has to protect both sides. Yet returning to official duty would still require Harry to accept institutional limits. A working royal cannot operate as an independent media figure who publicly challenges the crown whenever he believes he has been treated unfairly. Royal service requires discipline, confidentiality, and acceptance that the institution sets the terms. There is no realistic half-in, half-out arrangement in which Harry represents the monarch at selected events while retaining total freedom to commercialize royal experience and brief family disputes. That reality explains why William is unlikely to support institutional rehabilitation without a long period of proven restraint. Occasional contact between Charles and Harry is one thing. Restoring access to royal planning, ceremonial roles, or official representation is another. William would need confidence that his wife, children, and household would not become the subjects of future disclosure. One warm conversation cannot repair years of distrust, and a photograph cannot replace evidence of changed behavior. The strongest opportunity for Harry to rebuild his public identity remains Invictus. The games represent wounded service personnel, recovery, competition, and the rebuilding of lives after sacrifice. Harry's military experience gives him an authentic connection to that community, and creating Invictus remains one of the clearest achievements of his public career. The cause should stand above royal conflict. Unfortunately, nearly every controversy surrounding Harry now threatens to pull it into the same storm. During the difficult week, an engagement connected to the Royal Hospital Chelsea reportedly changed format. Plans for broader media coverage were reduced, and Harry attended meetings without the expected press presence. Practical explanations were offered, including weather and safety concerns. Those explanations may be entirely genuine. Yet the timing encouraged critics to ask whether cameras would have been welcome had Harry won his case. That suspicion may be unfair, but it reveals how little trust remains around Sussex communications. If reporters attend, critics say Harry is using veterans to rebuild his reputation. If they are excluded, critics say he is hiding after defeat. If Meghan attends, attention shifts toward her clothing, body language, and relationship with the royal family. If she stays away, her absence becomes a story about loyalty. The public no longer accepts every surface explanation without looking for a second motive. Meghan's absence during parts of the trip, therefore, became a controversy of its own. Some commentators used harsh language and portrayed her as a partner who appears during glamorous moments but disappears when Harry faces humiliation. That judgment cannot be verified from outside their marriage. Security concerns, family responsibilities, personal choice, and scheduling may all explain why she was not present. Still, optics matter for a couple whose public identity has often depended on visible unity. Harry has defended Meghan through repeated controversies, so people notice when he faces one of the worst weeks of his public life without her beside him. Yet her presence could also have overwhelmed every charitable appearance and turned the visit into a debate about her return to Britain. The couple are trapped because both appearance and absence are interpreted as strategy. Yet all of those side debates return to the original issue, which is why the alleged briefing about the Royal Overseas League meeting resonates so strongly. It appears to fit a pattern critics believe they have seen before. Private contact becomes a favorable story, the palace comes under pressure, and responsibility for publicity is later disputed. One episode may be misunderstood. Repeated uncertainty creates a reputation, and reputation is what powerful institutions use when deciding how much risk to accept. Charles may still continue limited contact. A father does not stop loving his son because advisors identify risk. He may want a relationship with his grandchildren outside titles and official duty, but future contact is likely to be structured more carefully. Meetings may involve fewer people, clearer boundaries, and strict separation between personal conversation and institutional negotiation. Such controls would feel unnatural in an ordinary family, but the monarchy is not an ordinary family. For reconciliation to become credible, change would have to be demonstrated rather than announced. There could be no immediate documentary, interview, memoir passage, or anonymous description after a meeting. No source would reveal Charles's tone, William's expression, or the emotional meaning of a private gesture. Months might pass without visible proof that contact was happening. That silence would frustrate Harry because it would offer no public evidence that the palace was welcoming him. Yet the absence of evidence might be exactly the evidence the palace needs. The process would also require Harry to accept decisions he dislikes without immediately escalating them. If an invitation is declined, he would need to avoid presenting the refusal as cruelty. If security arrangements are limited, he would have to challenge them through the proper process rather than public pressure. If William refuses institutional contact, Harry would need to separate that boundary from his relationship with Charles. Reconciliation cannot survive if every limit becomes a fresh betrayal. The palace would have responsibilities too. It could not demand silence while allowing hostile briefings from royal sources. Staff would need to avoid humiliating language and ensure that private gestures were not used to improve one person's reputation at another's expense. Clear principles would help. Harry remains loved as family but does not represent the crown. Private contact does not equal official restoration. Security decisions follow established assessment. Support for Invictus does not settle family disputes. The difficulty is that neither side believes the other will act honestly first. Harry may think silence allows the palace to control the story without challenge. The palace may think communication gives Harry material for another public narrative. Each side behaves defensively, and defensive behavior appears aggressive to the other. A statement intended to protect Harry looks like pressure. Palace silence intended to prevent escalation looks like coldness. The same cycle repeats. The court judgment could become a turning point if Harry allows it to end instead of opening another front. He may have time to consider an appeal. Continuing would preserve the controversy, increase costs, and strengthen the impression that he cannot accept an unfavorable result. Choosing not to appeal would be painful, but it could create space for a different focus. The challenge would be shifting towards service without using charity as a shield from accountability. Invictus offers that possibility if Harry places competitors at the center. He could reduce personal commentary, avoid linking games events to royal reconciliation, and make clear that any attendance by royal relatives would support veterans rather than endorse his grievances. The cause is too important to become another symbolic battlefield. If Harry truly wants to protect it, he may need to step out of the center of some photographs and allow the participants to carry the story. The wider royal family will also face difficult choices as the Buckingham Games approach. The monarchy has deep military connections, and supporting wounded service personnel fits its public role. Yet any attendance could be interpreted politically. If Charles appears, some will claim he is restoring Harry. If William stays away, others may accuse him of punishing veterans. If Catherine attends, photographs may be framed as reconciliation. If no senior royal attends, Harry's supporters may call it abandonment. The only workable approach is strict clarity. Royal attendance, if it occurs, must be presented as support for competitors, families, and service communities. There should be no staged reunion, no dramatic private meeting announced through friendly sources, and no attempt to turn the event into a referendum on whether the family has forgiven Harry. Invictus must remain larger than the Sussex conflict. The latest allegation may never be proven in a way that satisfies every observer. Sussex representatives may dispute it, and the journalist's own perspective should be examined. But its practical effect may be more important than the public argument. Even without decisive proof, royal officials may behave as though disclosure is possible. That means fewer meetings, tighter circles, less written material, and greater distance between family contact and institutional business. This is the deepest cost of the crisis. The family has lost the ability to behave naturally. A phone call becomes a potential story. A guest room becomes a constitutional issue. A charity event becomes a loyalty test. A photograph becomes evidence of reconciliation or rejection. Even silence becomes strategy. When every gesture is interpreted, people begin managing one another instead of trusting one another. The public often asks who is to blame, but a more useful question is what behavior could change the outcome. Harry can instruct his team not to brief private family matters. He can decline opportunities to answer every insult. He can allow his charitable work to stand without attaching it to royal conflict. Charles can maintain private contact without offering false hope of official restoration. William can protect his household while making clear that his caution is based on conduct rather than revenge. None of these changes would create an immediate headline, which is exactly why they might work. Repair would need to be nearly invisible. There would be no victory statement, no source describing tears, no carefully photographed balcony, and no announcement that a new chapter had begun. Only after months of silence might the public notice that the conflict had stopped escalating. For now, the atmosphere remains far from that point. Harry's legal defeat has damaged the authority of his campaign against the press. The leaking allegation has intensified palace concern about confidentiality. The accommodation confusion has shown that even practical arrangements can become public pressure. Invictus risks being overshadowed. Meghan's absence has invited speculation, and debate about Harry's formal royal status has returned. Each development reinforces the same central conclusion. Without trust, every possible path becomes unstable. The king may still love his son deeply. William may still remember the brother who shared childhood grief with him. Catherine may still prefer peace to permanent estrangement. Harry may sincerely want his children connected to their grandfather and family history. Those emotions can exist beside suspicion. Love does not automatically restore access, and hope does not remove risk. Yet the practical verdict may already be taking shape. Charles can preserve a private relationship during his reign, but any official arrangement involving Harry would eventually have to survive under William. The future king is unlikely to inherit a structure he believes is dangerous. That gives William enormous influence even before he wears the crown, and it explains why Catherine's privacy is central to the calculation. Partial peace may therefore be more realistic than full restoration. A father and son could speak without resolving every institutional issue. Grandchildren could know their grandfather without a royal role being revived. Harry could support veterans without using the event to negotiate family status. William could maintain distance without preventing Charles from offering private affection. The alleged leak has made even that limited future harder, but not impossible. Trust can return after serious damage if behavior changes consistently. The challenge is that everyone involved has incentives to defend themselves publicly. Harry wants his version understood. The palace wants stability. Journalists want information. Supporters on both sides want proof that their chosen figure is right. Real silence would require resisting all those pressures at once. Harry still has causes, achievements, and a global platform. He can continue supporting veterans, mental health initiatives, and communities affected by trauma. But that work will regain credibility only when it is no longer repeatedly overwhelmed by royal conflict. Charity cannot be the safe room entered after every public storm. It has to become the main story. That leaves Harry with a choice more difficult than winning a lawsuit or securing a palace room. He can keep fighting for recognition through public argument, or he can accept that the only route back to private trust may require disappearing from the royal news cycle for a while. One path produces immediate attention, but deeper suspicion. The other offers no visible victory, but may slowly reopen human relationships. The tragedy is that Harry often says he wants peace, yet the methods associated with his public strategy keep producing conflict. He seeks protection through publicity, but publicity makes private protection harder. He seeks understanding through explanation, but repeated explanation reveals more family material. He seeks control of his story, but the effort to control it encourages audiences to interpret every move as manipulation. Escaping that pattern would require giving up control long enough for trust to grow. King Charles can forgive without forgetting his duty. Prince William can protect the future monarchy without celebrating estrangement. Catherine can support peace without sacrificing her family's privacy. Meghan can stand beside Harry without turning every appearance into a palace message. Harry can challenge genuine wrongdoing without treating every unfavorable outcome as proof of conspiracy. These choices are possible, but they demand restraint from people who have spent years reacting to one another. For now, the palace is likely to choose distance, because distance creates fewer immediate risks. Harry may experience that as rejection. Charles may experience it as personal failure. William may view it as necessary protection. The same decision carries 3 different emotional meanings, which is why this conflict has resisted simple solutions. The verdict for the moment is painful, but clear. Reconciliation remains possible as a private family hope, but official rehabilitation appears further away. The allegation that Sussex linked contacts briefed a confidential meeting, whether ultimately proven or disputed, strengthens the palace argument that trust must come before access. Harry's legal defeat weakens his authority in the wider press battle, and the confusion surrounding his visit shows that even small arrangements can become major institutional risks. A way forward would have to begin without cameras. No balcony photographs, no strategic lunches, no anonymous descriptions of emotional calls, and no attempt to make the public decide who loves whom more. A father and son would need to speak because the relationship matters, not because the meeting produces a favorable headline. A brother would need to set boundaries without using them as punishment. A couple would need to protect privacy, even when publicity might be useful. That would be a quieter, slower, and less dramatic Sussex story than the world has watched for years. It may also be the only story capable of ending the cycle. Until then, every gesture will be questioned, every meeting will carry risk, and every claim of reconciliation will remain vulnerable to the same unanswered question: who will tell the press first? Thanks for watching Palace Verdict Daily. Share your verdict in the comments. Do you believe Prince Harry can rebuild private trust with King Charles after these allegations? Or has the pattern of public briefing made genuine reconciliation impossible? Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more royal analysis, palace conflict, and stories shaping the future of the crown.